Although winter is slower to release its grip here compared to much of the country, the snow does melt away, eventually. The warming temperatures bring welcome colour back to the hills and valleys. Trees, like these oaks, are transformed from bare branches to a canopy of green in just a few weeks. For the plants and animals, springtime is also the start of their yearly cycle. The Lake District finally shakes off the shackles of winter. In the high country, the rivers and streams crisscrossing the fells are filled with water from the melting snow. Just what one faithful Lake District resident has been waiting for. Dippers are particularly at home amongst the Lake District's fast-flowing streams. Generation after generation of dippers return to the same nest site every spring. Some sites have been in continuous use for more than 100 years. Dippers dive into the icy water to pluck the larvae of caddisflies from the riverbed. The dippers shake off the larvae's protective jacket to get to the juicy grub inside. It won't be long before they'll be feeding them to a nest full of chicks. As April turns to May, this hillside above Grasmere is transformed. As regular as clockwork, one of our favourite flowers bursts into life. Bluebells are able to flower this early because they can draw on energy stored in their bulbs. It's very unusual to find bluebells away from the shelter of woodland. They can only thrive here in the open because later in the year there'll be a blanket of bracken to protect them from the heat of the summer. With the sheep on their way, the walls that enclose the lowland fields can receive some well overdue care and attention. They're as much a part of the landscape as the hills themselves. Maintaining the walls is not a job for the faint-hearted. They run for hundreds of miles. On Millbeck Farm, the task falls to David Burkitt. He has spent most of his life building and rebuilding the walls here. With no mortar to hold the rocks together, building a dry stone wall takes a huge amount of skill and experience. Many of the walls will have been repaired and rebuilt again and again for hundreds of years using exactly the same techniques and exactly the same stones. They're built with an outer layer of larger stones on each side, a core of smaller stones in the centre, and finally a line of cam stones along the top. Once the stones have weathered a little, it's hard to know which bits David has repaired. He's one of the best in the world. He even spends 2 weeks a year building walls at the Chelsea Flower Show. These walls are more than just boundaries. They create an ecosystem of their own. In the summer heat, slugs search for somewhere shady to escape the sun. A damp cranny to hide in during the day. Deep inside the walls, they have the perfect place not only to shelter, but to lay their eggs. Slug eggs can lay dormant for months or even years if conditions are not right. But here the wall and the damp soil keeps them moist and protected. In only 4 weeks, the embryos can develop from just a few cells into perfectly formed baby slugs. Soon, it's time to hatch. Although some seem reluctant to leave the protection of their eggs. Finally, they slither off to feed and eventually start a new generation of their own. These plants have a surprise in store. Their seed heads explode. It's how they became known as touch-me-not. But nobody told the caterpillars this. The caterpillars have no warning when these little bombs go off. It's not just seeds that get hurled across the forest floor. Autumn is just around the corner. Amongst the grazing sheep on the fells, something other than grass is pushing its way up out of the ground. These brightly coloured mushrooms are called wax caps. They come in a huge variety of colours and grow particularly well in the open grasslands of the Lake District fells. However, if the surrounding grass gets too tall, then the fungi can't spread their spores, so the colony won't be able to reproduce. But they have an ally, the Herdwick sheep. They avoid eating the mushrooms and, by continually trimming the grass, they unwittingly secure the next generation of waxcaps. The cool, misty mornings frame the changing colours of autumn. The animals are preparing for the approaching cold. The Lake District is one of the few places in England where red squirrels thrive. Now is the time to urgently collect food from wherever they can find it.